Terumot Perek Tet Mishnah Zion, last Mishnah in the 9th chapter of Terumot. Okay, remember we said in the last Mishnah that if I have Tevel, okay, if I have Tevel and I planted Tevel, remember we said Tevel I'm allowed to eat Arai temporarily outside in the field, even though I didn't take off Terumot or Maasrot. But if it's Davar She'en Zaro Kaleh, i.e., if it's something like an onion, where if I planted a Tevel onion, then Gedulin Asurin, then the growth that comes from there, like even the grandchild plant, are considered Tevel that I already picked, and therefore I cannot eat Achilat Arai. So our Mishnah is a continuation of that Mishnah, and as we'll see. Let's say I'm weeding with the Nochri, the non-Jew, but Chasiyot. Chasiyot, Nachesh means to weed, Tolish Asavim, Nachesh, with the Nochri, in the field of a non-Jew. In Chasiyot, he says, are Shum, Luf, Vabitzalim, Vakarti. They're the leek family. And as you remember, in the last Mishnah, we saw Luf, Shum, Vabitzalim. Those are all plants that Ein Zaro Kaleh. Let's see here. Ein Zaro Kaleh. Okay, so since they're Ein Zaro Kaleh, for example, when I plant a batzal, a luf, when I plant one of these chasiyot, when I plant any one of these plants, if I planted tevel, then the thing that grows of it is also tevel. So here, the nachri, the non-Jew, planted these plants, okay, and now they're growing, and I'm weeding, and the question is, am I allowed to eat temporarily? Can I pick one and eat it in the field without taking off Terumot and Maasrot? Says the Mishnah, Af al pi sheperot tevel, even though his fruits are tevel, Ochel mehem arai. I'm allowed to eat them temporarily. I will explain. Let's read the Bartanura to explain. Even the Afa Pisha Perotav shall obed kochavim tevel. Why would a non-Jew's plants be tevel? Why? Desavar haitana. This is according to the opinion. Ein kinyan the obed kochavim be'eretz Yisrael lafkia min ma'aser. Okay, remember we had this big machloket in Shemitah and Shvi'it. Does the non-Jew's ownership of land mean that the mitzvot liot ba'aretz do not apply, or that they still do apply? So this Tana says, Ein kinyan lo b'kochavim be'eretz Yisrael. The non-Jew does not have a kinyan in Eretz Yisrael. L'hafkia mina ma'aser. Even though the non-Jew planted, according to this Tana, he felt nonetheless the fruit are still chayav in ma'aser. So according to that Tana, when you buy fruits and vegetables from the non-Jew, nonetheless, it's like I buy watermelons from the Arabs on the side of the road in Yudan and Shomron. Nonetheless, I'm still chayav mitzvot to Maasrot, according to this Tana. We don't pass in that way, but according to this Tana. So therefore, his fruits are tevel. And now, he doesn't take off Terumot and Maasrot, he plants from his produce, so he planted again. But what are we talking about? We're talking about luf, salim, and karti. We're talking about chasiyot. So these are things that are ein zar o kaleh. V'gidulei tevel b'davar she'ein zar o kaleh. We just said in the last Mishnah that if I grow tevel from these things, that you plant tevel, then the thing that I planted before is also tevel. Nonetheless, as the Mishnah, afilu hachi, nonetheless, ochel me'em arai, I'm allowed to eat, in this case, I'm allowed to eat arai, achilat arai, temporary eating in the field, and I don't have to worry about Terumot and Maasrot. Meaning the rule of, if I plant tevel, it's like tevel, that doesn't apply to a non-Jewish field. That was a long-winded way of saying all that. Mishnah continues, shtilei truma shenitba'u, a shtil is a little planting. So if I have a little planting of truma, and what happens is, as many things you go here in Israel, you're planting in your garden, you go by a little plant in the pot. So they plant it originally, and then they will uproot it, put it in a pot, and then you can plant it somewhere else. So once you pick it, once you uproot it, it can become tamei. So if I have shtilei truma, if I have plantings of truma, okay, kigon shtilei kruv utradin, beets or cabbage, they became tamei. Okay? Shtalam, if I plant them again, taharumi letamei. So now I took my little cabbage plant, and I planted it back in the ground. Now it's tahor. Why is it tahor? Because now it's mechubar lakarka. It's connected to the ground. It's no longer food. When it was separated from the ground, it was food. And now I planted it, it's part of the ground. It's tahor miletamei. But the Mishnah says, even though it's tahor, we have an extra chumrah, va'asurim le'echol ad sheyagom et ha'ochel. I'm prohibited from eating from that plant. So first I have to cut off whatever food was ever edible was on the plant, and then whatever that grows back the second time, nonetheless, I still have to cut off, then I can eat it. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad she'agom v'yishneh. I cut off whatever grew as the plant when it was tamei, I let it grow, I cut it again, and then I'm allowed to eat it again. It seems a little onerous. What can you do? But we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda in that case. Okay, so the Bartanura asks an interesting question. He says, well, if the whole point of saying that when I plant that gidulei truma are like truma was because I don't want people to leave around truma because maybe it could become tamei. And how come Chazal allowed something that I planted that was tamei to become tahor? Maybe I'll just leave around my tamei truma and I'll plant it on purpose. He basically answers, he says, because since truma is such a pain in the neck, it's really not worth it to leave your truma around to plant a field of truma when I could just plant a field of chulin. Because when I plant a field of truma, I have to sell it on the truma market, which remember we said many, many times is much less valuable than chulin. So a person would never intentionally leave around his tamei truma in order to plant it in order to make it tahor again. Therefore, Chazal didn't make a gzeira that if I plant it, it's tahor milit tamei. Okay, we'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, as always, rspalter@gmail.com. We'll dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a good day.